Get on YouTube. See what's happening. And you kind of make content. All right. I'm just closing out the YouTube video. Hi. Gonna look in the right place. This is Olori Law. They skin to be monies. Let me just make sure I'm not muted. Okay, I'm not muted. Good. I'm here for another episode of Building Black Technology. I was just making the flyer for the previous episode. I feel like it's been a little while, like I skipped a week or so. I want to just let you in on the tea. So I'll tell you all the things that are happening and see how you can get involved. So if you're in the New Haven, Connecticut area, I will be pitching Portal X this coming Thursday. Follow us on Instagram and my Northwest Instagram and my Instagram for details. If you're on Spill, I'll be sharing about it. Just make yourself known if you're on Spill and you watch these, okay? So I can make sure that I let y'all know about it. But yeah, I had my first pitch in 5 years last weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. Well, no, we're in a weekend. So last weekend, with the Black Business Alliance in New Haven. I think they are all over Connecticut. I interacted with the New Haven folk. At least they seem to be based in New Haven. I'm not even sure. But they have something called the Noir Expose, which a friend of mine helped to create. So shout out to the Dubonnet team, and Chizzy and Kamani for being planting the seeds that turn into the Noir Expose, where the Black Business Alliance, through support of the state and other private partners and funders, are able to give away cash prizes. Because I was thinking, am I saying the right thing by saying giveaway? But they literally are giving, it's like an investment, but normally with an investment, you're expected to pay something back, right? And all these folks are asking us to pay back is that we do the actual work. So perfect model for growing Black businesses, okay? Perfect model. Now when you just add on the accountability aspect and you're able to capture the data on the back end of what people actually do. So then you really are gonna make some things happen majorly. We'll come back to that. But my ideas are infinite, but they invested $100,000, which was supposed to be between 3 teams. They ended up doing 4 teams because my team, Noir Labs, myself and my daughter represented Noir Labs, Portal X. Us and another team got shared 3rd place, right? And that was also part of their way of expressing their intentions and their hopes for our organizations, because the judges literally said to us, we hope that you find a way to work together. And I know that we've all been recovering, all of us who participated over the last week, most likely recovering from that, for those who really went all in. And I think all of us did. I think everybody showed up to compete and everyone did such an amazing job. I was truly, I gotta say again and again, I was so blown away by these businesses. I really was. And by the founders, I was so impressed. I was like, there was a point where I was like, we might not even place at all. It's like, we barely got in. Uncle John be on my head, clowning me 3rd place. Nigga, we won $7,500. Okay. So that was some critical and yeah, timely injection. We haven't received the funds yet, but I know there's a process to that, right? But just knowing that is in the ether for us is exciting. It's a reinvigoration. And so I posted about that on LinkedIn. I think that might be why I heard from Sci City asking me if I'd like to pitch at Demo Day this coming Thursday. And I hemmed and hawed about it for a little bit because, of course, all the things, right? It's been 5 years. I'm a grown-ass woman. I'm going to be pitching to the teenies. But I would love to be in that environment with the youth. And even, with Sci City, just like when I was there, I wasn't a teenager, right? I wasn't a 20-year-old, brand new girl to the scene. I was a proper mother. So one of the things I love about Yale is that you don't actually feel out of place, whatever age you are there. People engage at a level of intellect and interest and passion. They don't engage just based on how you dress in or, who's your mother and your father, at least in my experience there. And I know a lot of people who, like, especially like our Black youth who show up at places like Yale as undergrads, and they have, they're interfacing with super rich white kids from backgrounds that, they've only heard about, they've never experienced or observed. And so for a lot of our kids, it can be really like a big culture shock. It can be culturally shocking. So having a better sense of what is in those environments and what those kids are exposed to is very helpful in preparing our kids when we want to go into those environments. Now, I'm somebody who I don't, push back on anybody's desire to go to places like Yale or Harvard. But I don't prioritize it. For me, it's not the end all be all. It's not the only way you can be successful. What is successful to me is being able to sustain an intergenerational independent institution, right? An institution that is thriving culturally and economically. And so that is able to support the people that it serves so that they are thriving socially and economically and physically in all the ways, right? So going to Harvard or Yale or Cambridge, it has a particular value when you are instituting your own community, organization, cultural institution. Like, I didn't want to say instituting your institution, but yeah, it's basically what it is, right? It's really helpful to have those experiences, that awareness and that knowledge as you are gathering data, as you are designing the foundations of the institution, as you are defining the narrative, the story of the institution. What will its story be? These really early questions are very valuable when you need to draw the blueprint, and you need to put a lot of thought into the blueprint and intention into the blueprint. And I've spent a good, I would say almost 30 years, many 20 plus years, thinking about how to organize us effectively. It has just been my obsession since I was a kid. And it meant different things at different times in my life. It was expressed in different ways, but ultimately that has been my priority and my focus. And interestingly, part of my expression is to talk about it. It's to express it. Part of my constellation, my roadmap to my North Star is to discuss it. It's to tell you what the fuck I'm doing. And somebody says to me that, these things have to be done in the open. And I am in agreement with that. Although I recognize that there are certain things that you're just not going, it's just not going to be discussed. And it will be understood by those who are meant to understand. And then that is where new languages come in. And when I say new languages, I'm talking about us learning languages that already exist, that are new to us. Okay. This is a very, very critical piece of the building of the new world, building of new types of technology. The language is critical. And we have a few recordings from our Yoruba classes that we're going to be sharing. Those who got tickets, many of you already got access to those recordings. We have so many other recordings that we are planning to chop up and organize for you, so that, you can learn Yoruba, easily, right? Daily. You could practice it, you could speak it We will be implementing the yoga group chat quite soon, I'm sure. And that is where we intend to provide resources and opportunities for translation and communication amongst those who are learning. So some of those things got started, and we want to just organize them for you guys within the month, let's say. Okay. And so I think it's important to think about language, technology, and language learning, that learning process, and what makes it effective. And so the first thing that I will tell you is to go and listen to some yoga music, some prayers, some King Sunny Ade, some Olamide, some Adekunle Gold, the first album. I will tell you to watch some Kunle Afolayan, but first focus on music. These are the people that come up for me. Fela Kuti, of course, Asha. These are some of the people that I learned bits and pieces of Yoruba from. And they say that the part of our brains that process memory and language is the same part that processes music. And so one of the fastest routes to fluency in anything, any topic really, is music. So especially with language, and considering that Nigerian music and, what we're calling this Afro pop or Afro, I don't like the names. Give me a new name for this music. I hate what they call them. But these new artists, these new sounds, these recent sounds out of the continent, considering that these sounds are exploding all over the planet, they show you a really fundamental and critical piece about the spiritual power, the metaphysical power, and the creative power of Black people. Just a little dose, just a little taste. Just a little taste. So, when we're talking about language, music, technology, it means that we have the opportunity to master African languages. And you know what that gets us? A little bit of privacy. It gives us a little bit of privacy. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And it activates whole new levels of cell vibration in our body. That's all I can tell you. I don't know how to explain it yet. There's a lot of data out there on this, but speaking your indigenous language activates your higher cell vibration, like it does. So for health-wise, physical health, mental health, speaking your indigenous tongue is a really great prescription. So we want to encourage you to do that. This is the first week of September. I was supposed to speak only Yoruba the last week of August. I did not. So I have to make up for it. I want to go into a Yoruba only week, but I need active translation. So this might be where we start the Yoruba class on a live stream with Sankara. I've been having a daily class with him. And, we took the weekend off. I want to resume tomorrow. With that class, I want to provide some aspect of it, probably some piece of it to the community, right? So maybe like the last 15 minutes of our session, last 5 minutes, last 10 minutes, we can go on live, we can speak Yoruba in public. I'm really focusing on what I want to learn. So one of the key things for me is mastering my prayers. So I have a lot of prayers that I've memorized in English that I want to memorize in Yoruba, so that I can be saying them and singing them, using them as technology all the day, every day, right? I encourage you to do the same if you're not already doing that. So speaking in tongues, praying in your indigenous language, those are base codes. Like that's how you got here. Like you were prayed into existence through the ether, through the divine oneness asked for you to come. So your very creation is language technology. Your very foundation is language technology. The spiritual technology, the spiritual medicine embedded in language. And so when that language is connected most anciently, most closely to your DNA, the level of sparks and fire and energy that pops off, that reacts is plentiful in terms of what you're able to create versus the knowledge in your being that the language that you're speaking and the body that you're in are at war with each other. Just keeping it 1,000 stack. So when you know that you are speaking a language that has harmed you immeasurably, and that is a language that dominates your thinking, your cells, your mind, your body, it's a war that's happening in your body. And so when you are able to tap into the higher vibration of your indigenous language, your native tongue, the sounds that were embedded in your DNA when you got here more densely than anything else, when you're able to activate that, you just unlock a different level. It's like in the Super Mario Brothers, whatever, you're on the next level of your higher self, like on your path. You are on that next vibration. Because now we want to talk about prayers. A lot of y'all, the reason a lot of y'all like the Yoruba spiritual tradition is because of the prayers and the incantations, the rituals, the practices that are done together. And I love that. I really believe in ritual. I'm somebody who desires and just delights in ritual, healthful, joyful, easeful ritual. And so that is why I created 21 Days to Liberated Habits. That was a co-creation with the divine. There's a co-creation with the divine, something we are continuing to co-create. But I guess the origin of what I was saying about ritual is that, who are we talking about? If you just look at our ancestors and everything that has been created fruitfully, it has come from ritual. I was talking about language and the kinesiology, I think is the word. Like I'm seeing like sparks, when we think about how our language and our DNA matches. And so to be in ritual around language and practice is where a course comes in, is where a community comes in, is where you choose how you can integrate that practice into your life right now. What is the one little thing that you can commit to doing every single day that will further you along your practice of mastering the indigenous language? Because what we would like to help you do is master the speaking and hearing of the language, and then give you the new scripts. There are a lot of scripts that have been documented that have come out of West Africa in particular. There are a lot of other scripts that are being uncovered. There are tons of African indigenous scripts. They'd like to tell us that our ancestors didn't write anything down. That's one of those bold-faced lies that Uncle Malcolm talks about. Uncle Malcolm, Daddy Malcolm. That's my daddy. I have so many fathers. Oh, gotta love the shade butter skin. So that's just one of those blatant lies. So there's lots of scripts, and we just gotta find them. We gotta get our hands on them. And there's a lot of stuff already online, and there's a lot of stuff that is in libraries that hasn't been accessed yet. And so elevating the critical urgency, the need for African language mastery amongst Black communities is going to be part of the New World Haven narrative. We're going to look at how language, the role that language has played, the role that the relationship between Black America and Black Africa has played in our liberation struggles over generations. We'll be touching on these things lightly. These will be sort of introduced ideas. What you have to understand about the narrative is that our first several weeks will be about telling the story of the Black Panthers, the story of how New Haven came together around the Black Panther trials. Yale, local activists, students, even political, representatives, I imagine some, right? There was a lot of cross-class, cross-racial collaboration. And so it's a really interesting historic moment, considering how divided the city appears to be a lot of the time now. Is one of the fascinating things for me about New Haven, because I've been somebody who's experienced the city as a student at Yale and as a student who was like put on blast because I experienced the same kind of racism that the university has for generations directed toward New Havenites. Because the reason why I was racially profiled by the Yale police is because they guard the university from the Black local population with everything they got. Okay? They invest heavily in patrolling and ensuring that Black New Haven doesn't get into the university campus with ease. So when you see a Black person sleeping somewhere that's not where you would expect somebody to be sleeping, it's like, yeah, is there somebody homeless off the street? You got a bonnet on? Maybe she off the street and she got into the dorm, you know? And so I could have very well been that because I'm Black, just like the quote that I just pulled up from Uncle Malcolm, where he's like, they don't harass us because we Methodist or Baptist or, poets or artists or, technologists or Yorubas or Igbos, or we have a common enemy. And that's just really what it is. And so we have to understand that because of this skin that we are in and what it presents to the world and what it means to the world, we need to unify just based on that. Protection for our skin. Protection for our skin. Respect. Put some respect on this melanin, baby. What? Look at this. Look at this shit. Just got this fucking gold mat. Like, look at this shit. Put some respect on my motherfucking melanin, my motherfucker. Excuse me. Keep me going. I'm sorry, this won't be for kids. I'm sorry. This is not for kids. And I always check that on YouTube. So just know that. Because I might have to split up the videos and have a kids channel and an adult channel. But respect for our skin. We can all agree, Black people anywhere in the world, that I gotta put some respect on our skin. And if they are to put respect on our skin, we have to celebrate our skin. So, celebrating our skin. We were God. Okay, I'm taking notes, Spirit. So we need visual artists, any type of visual artist that can work, some Illustrator and some Photoshop, a little bit of Photoshop, but mainly Illustrator for now. For our marketing, for our storytelling, we need major visual support. We have a lot of things that need to be mocked up, designed, and with an aesthetic that is top notch. Check out Sacred Medicine. Check out the Sangha House Nola visuals. They were done by an artist that I very much admire. Check out, there's very few. There's a lot of brands that I think are stunning, but there's very few that represent what I want us to look like in the world. I will think about some other folks and share them in the course of this conversation, I hope. But a little bit of an Issa Rae vibe in terms of just like color and brightness and strength in the visuals. There's a Yvonne Orji comes up vibe in terms of the luxury. She represents luxury very well. There is a I'm seeing Lala because she's playful, she's sexy, she's beautiful, she's curvy. I'm seeing all these like Black women rappers, which is so interesting to me when I think about our visuals. MC Light's coming to mind. It's the energy, right? It's like, how do you capture energy in a visual representation? That is what we tried our best to do with our emblems. on our icon. We have one emblem, I'm sorry, our emblem and our icons. If you look at the NorPress icon, the NorLabs, like very much a placeholder icon. We only really did thorough branding for NorFest, primarily NorPress. We spent most of our branding energy on NorPress, and there's still some refinements that we want to make there. When it comes to NorFest, we were getting started. We didn't get to lettering yet, but we focused on the icon. And yeah, so there's still a lot more branding work that we want to do. So that's another space where we want design talent, high-end design talent. And I'm gonna say branding work, and then products. You know, we are working on a number of products, and we need somebody who can chop out a lot of our products quickly. And when I say products, that is content, that is social media content, but it's also like downloads. It's also labels for our products, our ebooks, our audio books, so to speak, all of our stuff. We have tons of information, tons of products. And so we want to put a visual aesthetic, a consistent aesthetic to our products. And of course, there's Portal X. So we have some really great visuals for Portal X. For desktop, we are working on the mobile mockups. And so I do have like a Figma file open where I've like saved the assets dropped in from XD, but I don't know much else about Figma, and I really don't want to work on it. So I really want somebody who can do it and who can just knock it out really easily, moving some elements around, thinking about what would go best with mobile. A lot of the desktop design is literally easily convertible to mobile as it is, because our designer at that time actually focused on panels. I think that was what I asked for as well. So we actually have panels of what the experience is like within a desktop screen. And so you can literally just take those panels and put them on a mobile screen and move things around. That's a good start. We want to just get started and have something visual to show. So the sooner we can get a visual designer to help out with that, the better. And then, yeah, what else for visuals? So many things. So many things are digital content. And so once we have support getting some of that out, that will allow me to rest a little bit. So in my creative practice, digital design is one of the things that I do as well, but I need to spend some time with it to engage it differently than I used to. It was very haphazard, like one-offs here and there, and for utility and for selling products. Now I'm approaching it as an artist. I'm approaching my Illustrator use, my Photoshop use, and my other digital design tools, the use of them as an artist. And so that means I get to come to it a bit slower. I get to come to it a bit more curiously, with really particular and varied interests, right? And so that having some solid design talent that works for us, having that solid design talent that works on our team will make it so that it's just easier for us to focus on, for me to focus on writing, relationship management, visiting with some folks I need to just go sit down with and just show them what we're doing. So we need to make sure that the team is secure in the interim. So we are inviting our 100K partner for New World Haven. That's like our first, like, that's like the, what did I say? It's the T'Challa that invests in technology, the technological basis of the new world. So as our key partner, if you come on at this level, you are going to be responsible and have access to the technology of talent banking, which is one of the first things we're going to be building into Portal X. We're already building it, but it's one of the first things that we'll be able to test out, talent banking. And I explained it in one of my previous videos. I'll talk about it some more soon. And this is a reminder that I am going to talk about building capacity because of genius, because you see where my genius is. You see what I'm doing right now. It's strategy, and I'm communicating and dreaming out loud. That's just one of the zones, but very, very much a zone of genius. And so what I'm able to accomplish in that zone of genius versus what I'm able to accomplish in areas where I'm not so, endowed. yeah, the difference there. So I was talking about becoming a partner. So with New World Haven, so yeah, me being creative, me being an artist, me being a writer full time while my team continues to move the operational work forward. And I check in and I support through Jira, but I'm able to step back and really focus on doing what I want to do for the visual experience of the brand, right? So we spent all these years building the system architecture. It's all there. Now it's from the people connecting the dots that the pipelines and the pathways and the walkways, whatever, will be established in terms of how people do things. But all of the critical pieces are there now. And so it really is just a matter of people asking the right questions in order to be able to get access to the things that they need to do. Right. So I think I was describing what the 100K partner gets. So you get to help build the technology, and your name will be forever on the technology in a sense. And there's ways that we can approach that. There's ways that could be expressed, but you would be a fundamental cornerstone in the building of Portal X. And that's a thing that will be documented in different ways. But most especially in the immediate, you can expect it to be visible on the screens. So as New World Haven gets published towards the end of this month, we will have digital screens up in different spaces across the city that will feature the artwork and the storytelling associated with New World Haven. And what that will mean is that you'll go into one of your favorite spots and you will see on this screen, this digital screen, a comic strip. The first slide will be like the big New World Haven logo, banner, whatever. And then it'll go into the comic strip. So like, some of us as kids, we might have grown up reading comics and newspapers. That was more of a thing of like, I want to say my parents' generation, even more than like our generation. I don't know if my parents really did it, but I know like in terms of Gen Xers in the US. And then there were times I would see comic strips in the newspaper as a kid, and I thought they were curious and interesting. I didn't see a lot of colorful comic strips, and I didn't see a lot of comic books. It wasn't something I sought out either. I wasn't really a gamer, anything like that. The people around me who were more into that type of thing were more in the gaming world. And so I never got too crazy about like futuristic cartoon content until it was like Boondocks. I just remember falling in love with Boondocks, being obsessed, and I think the visuals were so rich and beautiful. And also it was so entertaining and so loaded with valuable data. Valuable data and discourse and commentary. So rich and loaded and powerful work there. And I just thought, yeah, like this is what, there's so much, even with something like Boondocks, there's so much more you can embed in there. But of course it's on a TV station. So just in terms of like doing something digital, I really wanted to speak to the kids. I really wanted my daughter to be involved and, her peers to be involved in the creation of the narrative and in the establishment of the platform for New World Haven. And when I say the platform, it really is, it's an operation, right? It's not just a comic strip. So the way that we have designed this is such that we are telling a story, which is one of the key ways to get people connected to a brand or anything, is to tell a story about it and to tell a beautiful story, to tell an elevating story, to tell a loving story, a joyful story, with some friction inside in between, right? You got to have the masculine action at times, especially if you want everybody to be into it. And then you want to have the feminine softness, you want to balance it out. That's one of the things, but visually stunning, aspirational stories centered on believable Black heroes. That was always the mantra for North Fest. And when we set out to launched NorFest in 2020, before the pandemic, we saw how challenging it was. So there was challenges before the pandemic hit, and then even when we went virtual, there were other challenges, right? We saw how difficult it was for us to get the type of content that we really were dreaming of as a film festival, as a new and independent film festival that nobody had heard about, except for those who had come to like the Yale Africa Film Festival the year before, right? For whatever reason, our efforts with media buyers were not crystallizing. We probably didn't have the right pitch at the time. And we didn't have content about the content that we love. Not enough to have a voice and a position that people could recognize. And so that is one of the things that we are working on in the short term and rectifying is that we have so much content, commentary on content that we will utilize in the coming months, weeks, et cetera, as we load up towards NorFest. So we want to have an in-person NorFest, February 2025. We would love for you to be partners in making it happen. And that is another place you will get visibility as our T'Challa, our founding partner for Portal X, for New World Haven, right? So by giving at that level, by coming in at that level, you get to be a part of the narrative of both New World Haven and Portal X. And with your support, with your partnership, what will happen is that the New World Haven narrative will continue beyond February, which is when the Mellon Foundation grant period is over, right? So we are committed to delivering this story within the time between now and February, the end of February 2025, right? There's a certain scope that we committed to for the grant that we will implement by the end of February, but with enough structural support and enhancements around us selling our services and our products and getting more grants and selling our low-end products as well as experiences, as well as tickets to NorFest. With that, we'll be able to have a really successful NorFest in February. We'll be able to demo Portal X, the mobile experience, at some level. I can't guarantee, it really depends on when the check clears, and the check's clear, right? But by the time we hit 100K, obviously we're continuing to inch towards it right now, right? But let's say we have 100K by the end of October, we can definitely do some really funky shit on Portal X by the time we have an event in February, let's say mid-February, right? And so at that event, what you'll see is everyone's gonna have a profile, right? You can come on the platform as a guest or as a member, but if you're a member, you're really using the platform to like save your tickets for NorFest, save your films, save what meals you want to have, save what conversations you want to be part of, save what kind of people you want to connect with at NorFest. What else? Just your preferences for the experience, as well as your preferences for products, right? What kind of products would you like to see there? What kind of vendors or creatives or operations, businesses would you like to be connected with? What are you curious about? And so there's a number of ways we'll capture that data from you, obviously, in the first steps of onboarding for Portal X. And so the first interaction with Portal X is going to be that onboarding process, that creating a profile. Those of you who've been with us for years, who you've taken our courses, who you've come to our events, who filled out any of our DGs, our forms, little, inquiry journeys, we still have your information. It is still securely, locked up. And some of you will be getting invitations to test out some of the features early, so those who have been in the system and who are still in touch will be the first to get to test out the technology, creating a profile, securing a ticket to NorFest, selecting what films you want to see, selecting what kind of people you want to meet, things like that. Those are the things that we're looking forward to for the Portal X experience at NorFest in February 2025. In the meantime, so working backwards from there, in that period, we will be focusing on publishing New World Haven. All right, so I'm taking 2 weeks off now to write, 2 weeks off for meetings and planning and operational things, to focus on writing and content production. And as I do that, that will allow me to publish some of the things that set the runway for the products and services that we want to offer to the world. So in particular, one of the first things that we're going to be sharing is the story of what we've done for the Brooklyn Arts Council, how the relationship started, how it's been, and what we actually built for them and why. The logic, the intelligence, the creative intelligence embedded in that project. Just really like high level introductory things. For those who are going to want more trainings related to that project, more of that deeper intelligence around how we came up with our UX questions, for instance, or how we designed that research process, how we captured the data, how we presented the data, and then what we would do differently, right? The tools that we use, the processes that we implement to be able to document and capture this information and engage the client in such a way that they are also able to access that information and utilize it for their benefit, right? And so that they can sort of be a well-educated and independent client. What was I saying? So those are some of the things that we'll be focusing on publishing over the next several weeks, but I'll be getting out my sort of high level introduction to some of the stuff or introductions. And then from the back end of those, you'll be able to see more detailed content about those specific things. So we'll be publishing, as I talk on these videos, I have my team creating articles based on the videos, and that's just like really basic introductory stuff. As you can see, these videos are loaded with tons of information and history and knowledge and creative intelligence. And so being able to distill some of these specific topics into their own articles, that is part of the information database that we are creating. Being able to provide references to other scholars and teachers and historians and educators who have touched on these things, who have provided a foundation for this knowledge to be understood. That is part of that work, right? And then engaging organizations, like the people that we want to work with. We really want to work with the City of New York. We really want to work with Barclays Center. We really want to work with Essence and HBO and organizations that are telling powerful stories and that do have big visions for the world and for making the world a better place, but that could use a bit more intimacy with their constituents. They could know their constituents a bit better. They could serve their constituents a bit better. They could articulate their vision a bit more concretely, a bit more attractively, a bit more engagingly, a bit more magnetically. And they could do it in a way that would cultivate an exchange between them and their constituents that would just be more fluid and more consistent, right? For a lot of us, we may only hear from the city that we live in when we owe them money, or is there any other time you hear from the city? Or, it's like, it's a ticket, right? What kind of relationship should you have with your city? Should they just be a punitive body, or should they feel like people who serve you? Should you be getting information from them weekly about the political landscape, right? Should you be getting information from them weekly about the environmental landscape and what's happening in your city? Should you be receiving information weekly about events that are happening in your locality, and being able to search those events and identify what would be best for you and your family? Where do your kids want to go versus where do you want to go with your spouse, and all the things that matter to you as a resident of a city, So cultivating relationships between institutions and their constituents that are a lot more fluid, a lot more harmonious, a lot more fruitful for both sides. There's certain information that the city needs from you. There's certain information that you need from the city. This is an opportunity to cultivate trust, right? But in order for you to cultivate trust, you really have to be trustworthy, all right? And so that's one of our principles at Nor Labs. There's a page on our website about values, and we don't want no shady nothing. So unless you're doing on the up and up, we're not interested, right? But whatever you're building that is meant to liberate the masses and help organize and drive resources to the most marginalized, we want to help you with that. We want to find a way to help you organize the content, the information, the content for your team internally that helps you to organize in the most fluid and efficient way possible, and then the content that you want to engage your larger community with, right? There's so many aspects to it, but what I'll break down is that our top 3 services and products are software development, and that is the whole soup to nuts process from information design and just inquiry, assessment of the needs for the project, the UX research, just getting that initial data, everything from that up to delivering your platform in production, right? We have packages for full development like that, starting in the 100K range. So that includes, like I said, the research, the Scrum Master, the product manager, if not more than one, and the developers, the development team that includes all the data and the reporting that you're going to get in that process. And includes access, obviously, to your code. It includes a lot of education about what is being done and how to manage and grow your platform and your technology strategy. And it includes, like I was going to say, a lot of technology strategy. And that by itself would be worth the money. So if you want to be a partner at that level, then that's really our ideal partner, is someone who wants to build some technology together, right? That's who we would love to work with. And from there, we would take it to, all the other types of services. So we have data and technology strategy, and then we have strategic storytelling, which I want to do a whole episode on strategic storytelling and why storytelling is so important. The power of storytelling, the technology of storytelling, the spiritual technology of storytelling. But all right, that's it. I'm going to talk about genius and capacity. All right. So I published the last episode of Building Black Technology on LinkedIn, saying that the solution that we were seeking when we went to get talent in Nigeria and on the continent was a solution to a problem that 90, if not 99% of organizations face, is a capacity problem, right? Most organizations are not operating at their highest capacity unless they are just super, super profitable, right? And then really prudent and really intentional with their resources. But for those organizations whose revenue still hasn't outpaced their vision, they're operating at some sort of deficit, most likely, right? Which is why you have organizations going to hire talent overseas from the West in particular, right? The US is notorious for hiring on Fiverr and Upwork and all these other sort of sites where we can get labor internationally at the lowest possible cost. And when you just have $1 and a dream, of course you're looking for the cheapest talent, right? You want to get the best possible quality, but with the lowest possible price tag, right? Because you're operating in that mentality and that reality. So that the solution of hiring Nigerian talent addresses a number of things in that context, which is what I talk about in detail on the last recording. I could go on and on about that for days, but I think my main point was just that working with us in particular, we know we can save you 50%, 99% of the time, compared to the stuff you're going to need done, like compared to paying talent in the West, right? So I'm not trying to take jobs away from Americans. I think Americans should be educating more than anything. Americans need to communicate with the rest of the world and teach folks and also learn from folks. But when it comes to hard skills, those who have hard skills, you have the opportunity to teach a lot of people all over the world and really transfer skills. And that's literally the most critical thing that's needed now for people to self-actualize and self-organize. They need hard skills and skills that produce the tools and resources that they need for their day-to-day lives, right? So the jobs that a lot of folks don't want to do here because maybe they're boring or whatever, or they're really intensive and they don't pay that well, those are some of the jobs that African youth will gobble up naturally. Like that's just naturally what's happening, right? So I have now 2 product managers, a scrum master, an editor, a learning developer, a finance kind of, I have so many people from Nigeria working on Nora Labs and doing an excellent job at some things, right? There is certainly a learning curve, especially when you're bringing on a lot of people at the same time. And there is a process curve, right? There's a process through which you access the actual that sort of well-oiled machine, moment. And so for this group of people, they're passionate, they care about what we're doing, and they're invested. And that is obviously the most important thing when you're building a team, from my perspective. When you are doing a passion project, when you're doing something that matters to you, that you're not just trying to flip and make some money off of, the first thing that you're filtering in for when you're hiring people is that they give a like about what you're doing. They care about it. And the more they care about it, and the more you can naturally see that they care about it, the more you need to hire them and train them, right? Most companies focus on the skills. Yeah, I don't know. I'm saying most companies, but who knows what the data says. I have to look it up. But in my experience, and from what I hear from people's experiences working in the corporate world in particular, most spaces are focused on the skills. Can you deliver the outcome that I need? Do you have the skill set to do that? I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to quiz you to see if you know how to do the thing. Can you use the register? Can you write code? Can you cut patterns and so, right? And that makes sense when the focus is on delivery. And that is the only focus. There's a certain price tag attached to that, and there's a certain type of experience that you'll have as a leader in that type of space. There's another type of work experience where it's focused on purpose, right? Purpose work business is what we tend to call it here. And with your purpose work business, you are very passionate, you're heavily invested. You're very passionate about the what and the why and the how. You really care about all of it. In that type of organization, you're going to be turned off if you encounter people who don't care about that at all. It's going to irritate you and aggravate you. You're not going to want to be around them, right? For the most part, there's a scale, obviously, right? There's a spectrum, but you want someone at least in the middle, but closer on that spectrum too. If we were looking at it on a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 is like they're just as passionate about your product as you are, which is going to be 1 in 10 million people probably. If we're looking at it on that scale, then if I find somebody who's a 9 and has the ability to learn, those are some of the key things you want to ask: interest, passion, and learning capacity. Do they have the ability to master what you want them to master? And this is not to say you're hiring somebody with a huge skills gap, but I'm building a place where I'm always learning and growing, and I expect that the people who are working with me will always be learning and growing. And so it's critical for me to know that you know how to learn, and that you will learn, and you want to learn, right? Because no matter how amazing you are at your job, you will want to grow. I will want you to grow. I would expect you to grow, right? And so I will see the areas of growth, and I will nudge you in those areas, in that direction, or those directions based on your interest, right? So that's the next question that we're asking. Well, we talked about passion. We talked about, bruh, I need food. We talked about passion. We talked about skill set. I'm totally blanking on whatever I just said, but we want to make sure that the person is passionate, they're interested, and so I talked about having learning capacity, right? They're passionate about learning. When you have at least those first two, the passion for the purpose, the passion for wanting to see the outcome delivered, and then you have the capacity to learn and the interest in learning and the ability to learn, then you have a star, right? Because with that combination, that person will naturally figure it out, right? Ultimately. Now, the question of how long will it take for them to figure it out, that depends on the skills. What skills do they have now? What can they influence now? What impact can they have right now? And for you to answer that question, you really should be looking at it from a zone of genius perspective. What is their zone of genius? What are they so good at so naturally that they can do almost effortlessly? Most of us are not looking for jobs with that type of perspective, and most people are not necessarily hiring with that perspective. So shifting to this type of model could take a little bit of inching over. It could take a little bit of practice, but it's worthwhile, right? Because when we ask these types of questions and we're able to now match or connect the skills cultivation with this alignment of passion, learning capacity, and current skill set, that's the shortest roadmap to getting to that maximum talent, right? On an overall scale. You can shorten the roadmap and the path and the process through a few different things that I'll talk about. But for 90% of the people, where you can connect passion, learning capacity, and current skill set, you can draw a roadmap to their North Star, if their North Star is a particular skill mastery, for instance. What's my point? Because I could go on and on. I don't know if it's been an hour already. These are only supposed to be 30 minutes. I'm trying to get all the information out. So you're lucky, because these videos may not stay up on YouTube as is. I might take them down and chop them up. And so if I were you, I would eat them up as much as you can right now. What is my point? So we're literally talking about the things that we're going to be doing and how we're hiring people and getting and maximizing that zone of genius for maximizing capacity. So the few ways that we have already maximized capacity is by hiring a full-time team at 20% of what we would normally pay, between 10 and 20% of what we would normally pay for these services. Now, our margin is impacted by the learning curve, right? And so we are finding that on average, we're taking about a month to train people to where they can actually be independent and effective. But that is not universal across the board. Some are effective earlier than that, and some are taking a little bit longer. But again, we have the combination of passion, learning capacity, and skills, and valuable skills right now, right? And so because these people have that combination, and they were available at the time that I was looking for it, and they had understanding of what was needed, and I believe they had the capacity to execute on what was envisioned, they were hired on a probationary basis, right? Now, with them having been given certain assignments based on what we knew was urgent at that time that they came on, they have been able to sort of get into a rhythm with some responsibilities, right? Some high-level critical responsibilities. That is an ongoing process, of course, but overall, yes, they have a sense of what their responsibilities are within that month, right? They have a solid sense of what their responsibilities are. They have a schedule for how they execute on their responsibilities and how they report on what's getting up to date. Of course, now we are using Jira in a more active and more granular fashion. We had a couple glitches with Jira over the last couple of months that set us back, but we're now in a place where we can have much of our work conversations in Jira. And that's how we're going to be going forward with like my writing period. I have to set up my autoresponder because I won't be doing meetings or emails for the most part over the next 2 weeks. But just got a phone call from like a really old number, which is wild to me. I will hear back. What are we doing? So Northfest, February 2025. This is the road to Northfest. First stop on the road to Northfest. Next stop, let me say, because the first stop was Noir XOV. Next stop is Yale Sci City Demo Day this Thursday, September 5th from 5 to 7 p.m. where I will be pitching Portal X. And I'll be talking about genius. So that's what I ultimately want to make sure I leave you with in this conversation. I'll be giving a 5-minute pitch. So that just really gives the whole picture of what I can of the ecosystem in that 5 minutes and what we're selling in Portal X and what we're bringing on partners to do. But beyond the pitch, I would love to have conversations about genius and how we tap into that genius that we each have as our evergreen, like our eternal wellspring of currency, right? When you know what your genius is, it becomes an eternal wellspring of currency because it gives you energy. Just engaging with it gives you energy, right? And so because you're engaging with it and you're enjoying it, you're literally vibrating higher just off of that energy, you have more to give. You know, like, and so what comes out of you and what you pour out in alignment with that energy is going to be the most valuable thing that you can offer, right? And so whether it is writing or technology or dancing or, you know, construction or tailoring, like whatever it is, everybody has something. It might be children, it could be 1 to 10 things, but there's going to be that one thing that's like the first thing that comes to mind, right? And then, you know, the answer might be different a few times, right? But ultimately, life is about finding your wellspring of currency. That place where you are so eternally charged up and excited for life because it means so much to you, what you are engaging with, what you are consuming, what you're reading, what you're doing, what you're practicing. And so when you are tapped into that wellspring, you give so much more value to anything and everything that you touch and that you engage with than you otherwise can, right? And so as an employer, as an organization, as an institution, you are looking for people who are in their wellspring because what they're going to produce for your organization is going to be far more. I would dare say about 1,000 times more. That's my estimate, but I don't know. And I think that's going to be one of the critical shortcuts to the future, right? Is us being able to truly tap into people's talents and tap into people's genius. The more we're able to tap into the genius of more people, especially niggas in the hood, especially Black youth. Don't get me started on the genius of Black youth, but the more we're able to tap into the genius of each individual, the faster we will see things pop off. And we'll see things pop off, especially if we focus on the most marginalized first, then we will see things pop off in such a way that they are less harmful, right? These are going to be harm-reducing innovations, right? They're going to be really thoughtful. They're going to be really creative. They're going to be really effective because they're going to be created by the people who are living them. They're living the reality of the cost of not having these solutions. And so the sooner we educate these populations on how to innovate and solve problems, how to collaborate together in solving problems, how to build solutions for their cities, their governments, their churches, their institutions, and the more we're able to cultivate leaders who can listen to and engage with the masses, the sooner we're going to be able to build environments that truly work for all. And we're going to find that people who don't really want things to work for all, they will expose themselves by the type of questions that they ask, by the type of things that they prioritize focusing their minds on. Then there's ways that you will show up as an agent without even realizing it, because what's it actually in your heart is what's going to show up. And so if you don't really think these things can happen, if you don't really want poor people to not be poor anymore, we will notice you from the questions that you will ask. So you're not necessarily, you don't need to come to these conversations. But if you are somebody who really wants the equality, yeah, come out on Thursday. I would love to see you and just let's be in a conversation either way, whether it's on LinkedIn, whatever socials. I'm not as active on Instagram as I am on LinkedIn and Spill. And I'm way more on Spill. So, but of course I want to be outside more. So Nola, meet me in Nola this fall, winter, something like that. We'll see. Yeah, I think I gotta leave it there. But as far as genius, like I said, just, do a 5-minute meditation, close your eyes, breathe, listen to some meditation music, and just ask yourself, like, what brings me the most joy? And tap into those memories and those awarenesses that you have of your bliss, of your glee, of your joy, and remember what it is that you were doing in those moments. And sometimes bliss is not like always jumping up and down. Sometimes it's like this really deep peace in your being, you know? And so whatever it is for you, when you think about bliss and you think about what you have loved to feel in your life and what you would love to feel more of, just tap into what's happening in those moments and make sure that you can identify that feeling for yourself. Try to make it something that, or at least whatever, see whatever comes up. But ultimately, when you're crafting your roadmap towards your bliss, you want to create a roadmap that you can control. You don't want to create a roadmap that depends fully on others, right? You're going to put on your roadmap the things that you will do, that you will focus on, that you will think about, that you will create, because you are God. You are a creator. You can make anything happen. All right. I love y'all. Thank you for watching. I appreciate y'all. I would love to hear from you if you have questions. And let me know if you're coming on Thursday. All right. Peace.